got to see the first 5 episodes.
Cool.
So
You've seen more than I have.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That being said, there's an interesting way the both of you are portrayed. You're both younger individuals in it, and the way it's written is actually really interesting in a good way because you make mistakes, really massive mistakes. That in some ways may annoy the audience, or they go, "Why did they do that? What were they thinking?" You know, is that something that you, as you perform these roles, is that something that you think about, like, how do I balance being maybe a potentially hated character with them actually being interested in what I'm performing?
Yeah. I was actually talking to Paul and Chris about that last night, because they said that one of the things in the show was that they wanted every character to be hated and loved at certain points, and to not play people who are just essentially good. And I know that for Stella, there were moments where I was like, how am I going to find my way into this? But I think that's the thing as an actor, is to, be brave enough to go through humans that are making huge mistakes. And for me, one of the biggest things was that she's putting her love, Teddy, at risk, like that he could be killed for being with her, and that she's doing it anyway. And to kind of find the drive to love him so much that that's a choice, that the only choice she can make. And also, like, that in herself, she hates herself for doing that too. So I think that it's like being aware of, like, this is a bad decision, but how to bring reality into that, and talking to Kelvin about that a lot too, and like figuring out, like, why are we being so crazy in this situation?
Yes. The Nunzi character, Jesus, that's a lot to take in. I was gonna say, like, you kind of remind me of the Joffrey of the group, because that's the easiest analogy I could think. Because people are gonna look at you and go, I cannot stand him, or I cannot deal with him. But again, being true to that character and trying to prep to deliver that type of performance, like, how did you go about that?
Well, I continue playing bad guys, which is one of the reasons I told Chris I would not do this show. That was the wrong thing to say to him, because I'm glad I did. I mean, I personally think that there's and I hope that it will kind of move in that direction, but there are some redeeming qualities about him, and that's mainly in the sense of what we just talked about in terms of, young people make stupid decisions, whether it's to impress their boss, or to placate their lover, or their love for that person. You know what I mean? And yes, I think I start off as a naughty boy, and probably as a rather unlikable character. I'm hoping someone out there, maybe a woman, will actually appreciate it. With my track record, it's like, I did a film called A Star Is Born, and I get death stares on the street. It's unbelievable, man. People come up to me, I love the movie, and their wife will turn their back to me and say that we hated you. Non-stop, right? So, like, this keeps fucking happening. But it's okay. I mean, the truth is, I just want to be an instrument, right? I mean, that's me. Like, I'm glad to be working with great people on great material, and if they want to use me in that way, until I start really arguing, which I will at some point, if they keep doing this to me, like, I'm done. I said, I don't want to use the N-word, Chris. I don't want to do it. I don't want to continue shooting people of color in the head. Like, it's so annoying, right? I'm like, just figure something out. So it's like, it's not okay, but, like, if there was truth to that at the time, right? And this is the argument I had. If there's truth to that at the time, then I'm happy to portray that for the time being, and then you got to figure things out for me. You know what I mean?
I'm in tears right now. Oh my God.
It was like, and that's been rough for me, because that's not what I want. I'd like to play someone a bit more redeemable, but I mean, as far as that's concerned, like, you have to trust the people you're working with at some point, right? Yes. And just go, okay. And in fairness, I made a few suggestions about some certain things, and they agreed. And what was even better is when I said, let me try and just move a little bit away from the racism here, if I can. And they said, no, go for it. And then I'd get
right? And then someone would come in and say, yeah, you can move away from the racism. I go, that's funny. Let me guess. The studio came in and fucking said the same thing as me, and they were like, yeah. I'm like, what a surprise, you know what I mean? But like, listen, it's collaborating with some wonderful people, and I just got to trust that, you know, especially when playing a role like mine, which is, you know, it's pretty tough, man.
It can be polarizing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right, well, I didn't hate you in A Star Is Born.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And so far, I really don't even hate you in this, because I feel like what you touched on something earlier that I want you to expand on, about how you said that you're basically your character is doing what's in his best interest as a person, being truthful to himself at that time.
Correct.
Like, it's not like he's an young Italian man who's trying to come up in the mob.
Straight up.
So what else would he do? So, like, when you're bringing that truth to the scene, like, how do you express that while, like, you know, also, like you said, you're shooting people in the head?
Right. Yeah. I guess I'd like to think that, you know, the idea of what you just described, which is trying to make one's way in the world, is coming across, right? So I like that word trying, right? Like, that's all I know. That is my world, right? And my guess is at that time with a lot of those guys, they would rather not have been doing that, right? But they're moving up to where they need to be in the world that they feel like they need to be, right? Whether that's right or wrong, that's the only thing they understand at that point. And I think if there can be any kind of disparity between my bad behavior and me actually caring as a human, then it might work, you know what I mean? And like, it's really interesting because early on, I said this to Chris, one thing that Ernie seems to be obsessed with is black culture, right? So he loves black music, and like, it's this thing where he's almost kind of trying to keep it quiet, but that's his thing. And I said, honestly, Chris, if we keep going with this show, I'd like to be more involved in the black side of the story than the Italians, because I think it could be quite interesting for this young man to feel more connected to that dance, that music, right? These people as a whole, than this kind of, you know, this bullshit moving up in the world, you know, within the mob. I mean, sure, it happens everywhere, but I just thought that'd be kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, I'm out for myself, trying to be a bit more redeemable as well, you know what I mean? But like, what's so funny is me being from North London and white and Jewish, right? Like, I've been sampling that music since I was 15 on a reel with an MPC in my bedroom.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like, seriously, right? Because I connect to that more than anything. And so I hope they'll let me use that. I swear to God, you know what I mean?
I mean, you said MPC, so
I'm there, bro. I'm there.
He also DJs, so he knows very much. So
I hope I can inject a bit of that, man, into that feeling, because as a human being, not as an actor, that world means a lot more to me. Amazingly. So I wonder if I can play with that a bit. I don't know.
Okay. Keep going.
Now I've forgotten the question. I'm thinking
he was like, music.
The show, I can sample and then send to Swizz and be like, yo, throw this in here. And like, he's going to be like, nah. You know what I mean? So, but it's actually the most special part of this for me was Harlem. At that time, and I mean Harlem in the sense of what we just talked about, you know, the revolution amongst Malcolm X and Bumpy and like that whole thing. I always felt like I was born in the wrong era. Like, I would love to be there then, you know what I mean? And I certainly connect to that more. So that was more exciting to tell that story. There's been a lot of mob stories told, right? But to have a black protagonist, Forrest, like, coming up in the world, that relationship with the Nation of Islam and politics and all that, like, that's mind-blowing to me. That revolution, you know what I mean? So I got to be honest with you, I'm part of the mob in this show, completely uninterested in that.